Hey, testing audio for anyone here. Alright. I have to disable hearing myself. Give me a second. Alright, there we go. Should be better. So, I think I improved the delay this time. It seems like it's down to like 1 or 2 seconds. Would like to completely eliminate it at some point, but is what it is for now. We'll start similarly to how we did last time, so just for the first 5 to 10 minutes I'll answer questions, then we'll get into the full card breakdown. Where am I from? I'm a New Yorker. You mad underrated, bro? Thanks. I appreciate it. Who's your favorite MMA creators right now? Honestly, I've stopped watching as much MMA content in general. Yeah, it's hard to say. If you guys have any recommendations, let me know. I don't really watch much. I guess I watch Dan Hardy's breakdowns whenever he does them. I think that sometimes his analysis reaches things that I just don't think of at all, which is nice. But otherwise, don't watch too much. What's your prediction for Hamza versus Kaio and Hamza versus Imov? I'm getting a resolution error. Give me a second. Can you guys see everything all right? I might just ignore the error if it's working. The screen seems the same? Okay. When I reduce the latency so I could get the delay down, it seems like it's capping the resolution. So, because I guess OBS is streaming in a different resolution, it does not like it, but it is what it is as long as it's working. So, back to the question, I think it was Hamza versus Kaio and Hamza versus Imov, right? So first of all, apparently the whole thing about a DDP injury was either false or grossly exaggerated. So that fight is still going to happen, apparently. It'll be a bit later in the year, though. It's not going to be International Fight Week. So, still, Hamza versus Kaio and Hamza versus Imov are very tough to predict because Kaio probably has a superior pure grappling. Obviously, Chimaev's wrestling is much better, but if Kaio can just survive the first 2 rounds, I do think he has the edge in the later rounds, so I would have to lean towards him just barely. Hamza versus Imov, I would lean towards Hamza. Imov definitely could win under the same whole cardio issue. That's always going to be the question with Chimaev. But I think the reality is that Imov has less of an ability to survive on the ground if he's in a bad position. Kaio can always roll for things, do weird stuff. It's just in his toolkit. Hamza couldn't do much to burn, so I think Kaio... Yeah, exactly. I would have to lean towards Kaio. But, like, there's a possibility because I don't think Kaio necessarily has Burns' ability to control things from the clinch. So there's a possibility that Hamza could get Kaio down into like a crucifix situation, get a ground pound TKO. I just don't think he would get a sub. How does Hamza versus DDP go? I think Chimaev is just not going to be able to move DDP as much as he think he will be able to. Like, he will probably have the edge in rounds 1 and 2, but with a lot of wrestling, like, I can't see DDP getting finished on the ground very easily. He's just very tough to move, and he does everything very technically sound, even though he's a bit awkward. So he will likely survive till round 3, pour on the pressure, get a round 3 or 4 TKO. How does JDM versus Prates go? So it's an interesting one because I think that Prates' tendency to have issues on the back foot would catch him as long as JDM trusted himself. It's weird because we have seen JDM not fully trust his ability to move forward and throw. It's hard to say with like complete certainty that JDM would win, but I think that as long as he had the game plan of like, okay, let's just go forwards, force this guy on the back foot and knock him out, he probably would be able to do so. Thoughts on MMA YouTube versus traditional media? Honestly, the traditional MMA media has been kind of garbage for a while. Like, it just seems like they either stay very safe with their questions, or it's just they have no idea what they're talking about. So I do prefer the YouTube stuff. I'm so thankful the DDP injury was not real. Yeah, exactly. I do want to see him fight again. Also on Kaio versus DDP. It's an interesting fight. I'm going to lean DDP. I think that Kaio's offensive grappling has seemed a little bit questionable, and I think on the feet it's just DDP's cleaner. Prates is probably going to chin Garry, right? We'll get to that. Hi man, how are you doing? I'm alright, how are you? 145 McGregor versus Topuria, who do you think would win? I have to lean McGregor slightly. I think that McGregor's forward pressure would prevent Ilya from being able to get off like he normally does, and the fact that Ilya's using the overhands and the hooks, I think that McGregor would be able to land a straight left counter. But if Ilya came in with a game plan of like, okay, let's wrestle for the first 3 rounds, we don't want to strike with him early, then Topuria definitely could find a finish in the later rounds because Topuria's cardio does hold up better. Predictions for Topuria versus Islam. So, there's something I want to get more into that later, actually, after we do the full card breakdown, because I will ramble about it for like 20 minutes if I start. Long story short, I am going to slightly lean Ilya, but there are reasons why I'm not sure. And we'll get into that later. I feel like it might be Charles versus Ilya for vacant, unless Bilal wins against JDM. So apparently Islam is in training camp right now. So he wouldn't have gone into training camp already if it wasn't going to be Islam versus Topuria, most likely. So I do think we are getting that fight, luckily. What do you think of a matchup between Topuria and Fiziev? Fiziev is just too hittable. He has, like, the traditional Muay Thai style where he's not really going to set up things or slip things. He's going to just keep the guard in some basic movements and throw. And his offensive striking is great, but he's just too hittable. How do you think Bilal versus JDM? I think Bilal will win a 49-46. I think that JDM has a very good chance of taking him out. I think that JDM's offensive striking is still very underrated because he had a few lackluster fights. He did definitely struggle in the grappling against Burns, but realistically, Burns' scrambling is much better than Bilal's. Bilal's initial ability to get you to the ground may be better, yes, but even if Bilal gets JDM to the ground, which he probably will at one point, I don't think he can hold the position there. I think JDM will be able to get back up. And I think the longer it goes on the feet, Bilal's lack of striking defense is going to come to haunt him. Thoughts of the rumor of Aspinall versus Gone? I don't think it's true. It's always possible. You never know with Jones right now. but Aspinall seemed happy after his meeting with the UFC, and I don't think he would have been happy for an Aspinall versus Gon fight. Alright, we're at the 10-minute mark, so we'll get into the full card breakdown. Before I start the full card breakdown, are there any of these fights besides the main event that you guys are particularly interested in? So I can go deeper into the analysis on one if you guys care. What about Anthony Smith versus Jang? Okay, I can focus on that fight a little more when I get to it then. Any other requests? Smith and Jang also. Shikadze versus Onama. Yeah, okay, I'll go into that one as well. What fighter do you think can beat Ilya? I'll get into that after the full card breakdown. Shikadze and Onama. Okay. So it looks like you guys want Wallmaker and Romero. Pereira. Alright, so a lot of the main card, basically. That's fine. Iga and Onama. Yeah, okay, seems like everyone's interested in that one. Cool. Alright, let me switch over. Now let's see if this works correctly this time. Can you guys see the screen? I have the chat open on my phone this time, so I can keep watching while I'm talking about this. Yes, okay, great. First matchup, Chelsea Chandler versus Jocelyn Edwards. Not the most interesting fight in the world. Jocelyn Edwards is reasonable everywhere. She's well-rounded, I guess. Chandler's durable, I guess. The ways that Edwards loses is if someone is very good in one place. So, for example, against, what's her name? Perez, she just got out-grappled the entire again. Cornell has much better stand-up, so she lost that way. Against Carl Hosa, she just got out-wrestled the entire time. But if she's against someone else who doesn't have like a specialty, she's just going to win. So Jocelyn Edwards should take this one. Not much more to say. Quamba versus Romero is the first very interesting fight on the card. Luckily, it's the second one, so we don't have to wait too long. So there's a lot of things that people don't understand about Romero, which is making this fight more interesting. Romero had a pretty good performance against Onama on very short notice, and it was up a weight class for both of them, I assume because Romero couldn't make weight on short notice, but that's all good. Romero is, I don't want to say a first-rounder bust fighter, but he is much better in round one than any other round. It's not just it was short notice and he gassed out because of that. It happens in all of his fights. If he doesn't get a stoppage in round one, he's probably not getting a stoppage. He's also probably never going to win a round three. That's just the reality of it. He slows down way too much and he keeps way too high of a pace in round one. In his last fight, he looked significantly better than I've seen him look before. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe he made progress. He's not very old, so it's 100% possible that he just got better. But it's also possible that it was an overperformance. So we'll have to see how he does this time. On the other side, Quamba is someone who feels like he should be good because he is extremely well-rounded. He has a solid build for this weight class and so on. But he just doesn't really put things together properly. He keeps the high guard most of the time, but when he's going to throw, he'll drop the high guard. Or when he goes into the pocket, he drops the high guard. So kind of like takes the point away of the high guard, and then because he doesn't have any head movement, he gets hit very easily. So it's an interesting fight because Romero will try to finish him in round one, and if he can't, I don't really know what happens. Romero has to try to win rounds 1 and 2 if this is going to decision, because I really doubt Quamba is going to lose round 3. As for a prediction, I'm going to favor Romero, because he definitely could finish the fight in round 1. I think that if he drops Quamba, he definitely could snatch up a submission, or maybe get it done better than Lucas Almeida did, because Lucas Almeida is technically skilled in how he throws, but doesn't have great follow-up or put things together long-term. He just kind of like 1-2 and done is pretty solid. So yeah, I'm going to pick Romero by submission officially, but if we're going into round 2 and he hasn't really hurt Quamba, even if he won round 1, it may be a position where Quamba is like going to be taking over. How come they only weigh 150 to 160? I mean, who knows if this is accurate? It's really hard to say, but at the same time, like, that's a reasonable weight cut, right? 162 to 145. That's pretty solid. Any specific questions about this matchup? Alright, so I'll go on to the next one then. No? Okay, we're good. Yeah, I'll go on to the next one. I won't spend too much time on this one, don't worry. Eminem is very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu wise. She's okay on the feet. She's not bad. She takes her career seriously, at least. Not much more to say. I mean, I think she's finished all of her UFC wins, which is nice. At least we're probably going to get a finish in this fight. Viana is not bad everywhere. I mean, she actually does have pretty solid power in her hands, but she's just not the highest level fighter in all reality. Eminem should win. She should either get an early sub or maybe ground and pound finish. This shouldn't go very far. I mean, it should be one-sided. If you're playing like DraftKings Fantasy or something, there's an argument to like take Jacqueline Amorim just because it should be very one-sided with grappling. But in terms of betting, I think she's like -9. Yeah, this is -800. I feel like she's -900 right now in reality. So you guys get the picture. Wallmaker versus Simon. Okay, now this one is interesting. Simon is one of those fighters who's very technically sound. Like, his boxing is great, his kickboxing is pretty good, his grappling is okay. He did get out-grappled by C-Rod, but that seems to happen to every undefeated prospect against C-Rod. So Simon's biggest issue is that he just seems to be at a power disadvantage every single time he fights. Like, he feels like he should be a 125er, and he's actually just fighting at 135 for no reason. Maybe partially indicative of like the slightly low weight here, although that's not crazy. He also has a much smaller reach than you would probably want for like someone in this weight class. He's gonna probably try to put the pressure on, put the combinations together, but if he's gonna get a finish, it's gonna be round 3. Like, he can't really hurt people. He can land full power shots. We saw it in the Peyton Talbot fight, where they were just going blow for blow. I don't really say like Talbot is necessarily better. It's just whenever Talbot landed, he just did 10 times more damage. Wallmaker, on the other hand, is a lot less technically sound, but his power is just a game changer. Like, he can land anything and put someone out. His defense on the back foot is not something I particularly like, because of the fact that he just drops his hands and like leans and moves backwards. Not great if someone's going to put together combinations, push you against the fence, and maybe throw like a 1-2 head kick or something. Is Simon someone to land something that is actually going to hurt him? Probably not. I'm going to have to lean Wallmaker. I wouldn't be shocked if Simon won. He is the more technically skilled fighter, but Wallmaker is probably just going to land like 2 punches per round that's going to score him the round, because he will outdamage Simon if he cannot put him away. Simon ain't fought in a while either. Yeah, exactly. The inactivity is tough. I mean, maybe he was redefining himself. He is very young, but it's hard to say. Who are you personally rooting for on this card? Good question. Let's see, who's on this card? I wouldn't say I'm like too attached to anyone on this card, honestly. It's a good card in terms of skills, but like, I don't think I'm attached to any fighter's personality or anything on this card. Alright, we'll go to the next one. We'll go through the early fights pretty quickly, and then once we get to the main card, we'll slow down. I don't really know why this fight's happening. The one Blackshear is fighting, I just forget how to say his name. I'll just skip it for now. You guys know who I'm talking about. So, Blackshear is primarily a grappler. He can strike, he has volume striking. Problem is, he tends to be a bit spastic in the striking, drop his hands and get clipped. He hasn't officially been dropped that many times, but if you see him get clipped, it definitely looks like he's hurt a lot when he drops his hands. He did get knocked out by Montel Jackson, but overall, pretty good results against much better opponents than this level. His last fight was against Gibson, and like, the weird thing is that it looked like Blackshear was just asleep in round 1. Gibson was just teeing off, and Blackshear just wasn't doing anything until Gibson took him down, and then he subbed him. Very strange fight. Blackshear just fought like a month ago, didn't he? Something like that. Yeah, let's see the exact date. March, yeah. He fought literally just a month ago. I don't know why they're not giving Blackshear at least someone who could be in the rankings eventually. This is just kind of a pointless fight, and I think that Blackshear's like -550 right now, which kind of indicates it. Is it Alatung Haley? I think that's how you say it. He's relatively well-rounded. The problem is he seems like he can't do everything at once. Like, he can either grapple or he can strike. If he does one, he's just not going to do the other the entire fight. I really don't know why. He's at a massive reach disadvantage and height disadvantage. I really don't know how he wins this. Like, if he grapples, I feel like he's going to get subbed. If he stays on the feet, I feel like he's just going to get outworked. This is just not a fight that makes sense, in my opinion. I feel like Blackshear needs to finish him to make a statement, because this fight is just pointless otherwise. Gutierrez versus Castanada. So, Gutierrez, very good calf kicks, very good movements. He's a pretty dynamic striker. He throws spinning stuff sometimes. I think he has one or two spinning like back fist knockouts or something. Castanada is relatively well-rounded. He likes throwing head kicks in combinations. He's caught a few people with it. He is much better in the grappling than Gutierrez is, but he wasn't able to really do anything with it against Marcos. Castanada's coming off a loss against Marcos, I believe. Gutierrez is coming off a win against Kwang Lee, I think. But the win against Kwang Lee looked terrible. Like, we know now that Lee is not amazing. He got finished in his next fight. And Gutierrez won a 29-28 in just very boring calf kick move around fashion. Honestly, I think that's probably how Gutierrez wins this fight again. I think that anyone who doesn't really have movement down, which fighters tend not to at bantamweight until they're like near the rankings at least, they're just going to have a hard time tracking down Gutierrez and hurting him. So I am going to pick Gutierrez. Someone said, I think you're muted. Can everyone hear me? I'm not sure if the error is going to make like things complicated with it cutting out or something. We can hear you? Okay, good. I can hear you fine. All right, great. Yeah, so anyways, Gutierrez probably wins 29-28. You're not muted, you just pause a lot? Yeah, I do pause to think. No worries, you guys are good. Okay. But yeah, so Gutierrez should win in 29-28, probably in boring fashion, unfortunately. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this is more of a barn burner, but I think Gutierrez is going to be moving around and calf kicking. Okay, this fight is flying under the radar a bit because Elder's first opponents pulled out because of, I think you guys know what. I can't say it on YouTube. Elder's a very powerful striker. In the grappling, he's pretty dangerous as well. He likes to snatch up submissions immediately. Everything he throws has power. He is relatively well-paced. He's kind of had the short end of the stick with his matchmaking and like the outcomes of his fights. Because, let me show you. Preston Parsons was up a weight class in his first fight. That was just unfortunate, right? He just wasn't ready for that. It is what it is. The fight against Sadikov, he got robbed. Like, there's no other way of saying it. He was winning the first 2 rounds, then he got cut, and they stopped it. And it didn't even seem like it was that crazy a cut. Like, I don't think he would have gotten finished. He was not hurt at all. It was literally just a cut, and all he had to do was survive the round. So, honestly, I feel like this is more of a win than a loss, and it's against Sadikov, who's not bad. This fight was a little concerning because his striking defense can be strange at times. Like, he got clipped with a massive overhand. On the bright side, if you're rooting for Elder here, he did recover from it basically instantly. He went down like he was unconscious, but then just like came back to life and started moving instantly. The problem is, you shouldn't be getting caught by that from Valdez. He's just not someone who had crazy success in the UFC, to say the least. Darius Flowers is Darius Flowers. He was never going to win that fight. He just threw everything he could in round 1 at altitude and gassed out. So that is what it is. Overall, Elder's pretty jab heavy. He's going to keep a reasonable pace. He's good everywhere. He has reasonable striking defense, but it can be a little suspect with how he moves. He keeps a high guard and such, but sometimes when he throws, he can be clipped. As for Gage Young, I do think the initial odds were definitely like underestimating him, because Young has very, what would be the word? His offense in early rounds is crazy. Like, he's just going to go for... He's going to go for broke in the early rounds. He has very good straight shots. He's going to switch stances a lot. He likes to switch stance... switch kick, rather. He likes to switch kick a lot. He's going to basically throw everything at you. His striking is clean and straight. He's definitely faster than Elder. He is probably a bit less powerful than Elder, but because he throws stuff more cleanly, I could see him finishing Elder early. I don't think it's going to happen, but it is definitely possible. Young's best chance here is to win the early rounds or just finish it early, because Elder's going to be able to keep the pace the entire time, and Young will slow down towards round 3. So if Young cannot get the early rounds, like if you're live betting, for example, and it's 1-1 going into round 3, Elder should have this. For a prediction, I'm probably going to take Elder by round 3 sub. because I think that Jang showed in his Contender Series fight that when he slows down, he stops being nearly as defensively responsible on the ground. Selkeld nearly had him choked out, I believe, at one point in round 3, and I think Elder is just a much more imposing presence on the ground. Like, Selkeld is good, but he's not that strong. Elder's just going to crush you when he gets into that position. So, Jang needs to avoid the jab if he can, because Elder's just going to be spamming it, and for some reason, Elder's jabs have the ability to drop people when his right hand doesn't have as much ability. Jang needs to keep the pace early. Elder needs to just slow down, relax, not take too much damage early, take the later rounds, maybe get a late finish. Imagine your opponent pulls out because, yes. Oops. Why is this website just dying? Okay. Thanks from Discord here, bro. Where's Super Chat? This isn't monetized yet. I appreciate it, though. I'll let you guys know when it is. I appreciate the thought, though, for sure. Poor match now. So, both of these guys... Why are we... There we go. Okay. Now stay. Both Schno and Flick, I believe, retired, and for some reason are back. I have no idea why. They're both on the older side now. I think Flick is a little older. Let's check that so I'm not speaking out of nothing. 90... Oh no, they're the same age. Okay. They're both on the slightly older side, but none of them are too old, I guess. Schno is actually relatively well-rounded. Besides being on everyone's like highlight reel, he's pretty good in striking. He's gotten a lot of finishes off his back with the grappling. I think triangles are like his main submission. Let's see. Yeah, when he's winning triangle choke, triangle choke, triangle choke. Yeah, so triangles are his main tool here. Probably not the best idea against Flick. I don't think you want Jimmy Flick on you. So Schno probably is just going to try to keep it on the feet. He has the better hands. There's a possibility he can knock out Flick. He's just going to try to stay safe and avoid the grappling if he's smart here. Problem is, I say if he's smart, he had the worst shot against Durden and just got power guillotines. I have no idea what he was thinking. He was ahead in the striking. I don't know if the pace was getting to him or something strange, but he shot from nowhere and then just gave up his neck instantly. Flick, on the other hand, has somehow like nearly fluked his way to 2 wins in the UFC. So every time he wins, he's getting beaten up and then just throws up a sub. It's honestly hysterical. Was getting absolutely destroyed by Durden, triangles him off his back. Was getting beaten up by Gordon, finds like a fluke takedown in round 2 and just finishes him instantly. It's honestly crazy watching Flick. It's always fun, so I can't complain about this fight. If Schno keeps it on the feet, I mean, you guys can see from the knockouts that Flick has received, I guess you would say, that it's not going to go well for him. If Schno tries to wrestle, which he might though, he's going to get subbed. So this is like almost a battle of like, does Schno have high enough fight IQ to just keep it on the feet? And honestly, I'm going to have to guess he doesn't here, after seeing what he did last fight. So, while by all logic, Schno should technically win, like he is the better fighter, I do think that he is going to initiate grappling for no reason at some point and get subbed. Love your short/reels, thanks. Schno shouldn't have shot on Durden, yeah, exactly. Unrelated, but thoughts on Gamrot versus Klein? I'll get to that after the card breakdown. I'll answer any questions then. Is this a fight worth betting on, or is it risky? Honestly, like, they're both so inconsistent. Flick is just going to try to fluke a sub, and Schno is just, I mean, should win, but probably won't. So, I don't even know who you would bet on here if you're betting. Maybe you could just bet doesn't go the distance. Maybe you could bet like an under 1.5. I'm not even sure, because Schno seems to get finished under 1.5 every time for some reason. Flick, I mean, he got his finish here. He got finished. Yeah, I mean, if I was going to advise a bet, I guess I would say just bet the under 1.5. But it's a weird fight. Schno might get slept by the cut man if he applies Vaseline too hard. Yeah, it's possible. Like, watch Schno be like Flick's first knockout ever. I wouldn't be shocked. Betting on match Schno should be a crime. Yeah, I get what you mean. Alright, getting into the more interesting stuff now. So, I've been an Ikram Liskov hater for a long time, just because his striking defense was so atrocious. I was like, this guy is just not nearly as good as people think he is. That's why I was so confident in Whitaker knocking him out last time, and it did happen, so I was vindicated there. But Liskov's offense is pretty good, his takedown defense is pretty good. It's just, I feel like any reasonably high-level striker is going to sleep him, because he doesn't defend anything. His defense is his chin, which isn't even amazing. Like, if we look at his striking defense, if I remember correctly, it's 36%. Let's see. Yeah, striking defense, 36%. Striking offense, solid. But when you're getting hit more often than you're hitting someone, like, you're just full-blown trusting your chin, which I do not love. Anyways, Munhoz is not the most dangerous on the feet, though. He is dangerous in the grappling, but can he take down a Liskov? Probably not. Liskov, I don't think he's, to my knowledge, he's never been taken down. He wasn't been, Chimaev couldn't take him down with several minutes of trying. So the safe bet here would be that Ikram Liskov just pieces him up on the feet. The only problem is if Liskov tries to like ego grapple or something, I could see Munhoz pulling off a sub. There is a chance Munhoz catches him on the feet. Munhoz has the tendency, though, to just back up with like his hands extended or out. I think Ikram is going to like that. Just pressure him and then knock him out. Munhoz was shooting Ikram until Augusta Win hits his chin. Yeah, it was schooling Ikram until Augusta Win hit his chin. Yeah, so Liskov is not amazing on the feet, but he is better than Munhoz. So he should be able to knock out Munhoz. There is the chance that because he just got knocked out for the second time in his career, he does fight conservatively, and this becomes like a really weird point fight. So I wouldn't go all in on betting like a Liskov knockout if that's what you're betting. He still should knock him out, but you get what I mean. Ikram or Bo? That's a tough one, because even with how stupid Bo looked on the feet last fight, I wouldn't be shocked if he knocked out Ikram, because he just has to land something, and Ikram is not hard to hit. Like, Bo does have some power. How he couldn't hurt Craig, I don't understand, but he has knocked out other people in the past, so I do think he has power. Munhoz got TKO'd by Paul Craig, which is not good. Yeah, he did TKO him on the ground, though, so it is a little different. I don't think that Liskov is going to have that grappling pedigree where he's just going to be able to compete in the grappling like that, get top position, ground and pound, but it is possible. Hey, Reaver. I do want to see how this goes, though. If Ikram is more defensively sound and knocks out Munhoz, maybe he'll be something in the future. It is possible. Like, sometimes fighters just don't realize they have a massive deficit until it gets them knocked out. So Liskov does have, like, the ability to be good. I just don't think he's that good right now, or at least he wasn't in his previous fights. Brown versus Dalby. So Brown is a very interesting fighter because in round one, he's basically unstoppable. Besides the JDM fight, but JDM is going to piece up pretty much anyone in round one. But Brown is extremely fast. He's extremely precise. He just sometimes has very low fight IQ. Like, he should have destroyed Battle. Just for some reason, he was backing up in a straight line going to the fence and then engaging in the clinch fight rather than just striking at range where he was winning easily. So at range on the feet, this fight is entirely one-sided. Like, Dalby isn't bad by any means, but Brown is just going to be way too fast for him, especially early. Round 3, Brown does slow down a bit. He has lost some round 2s as well. I think Zalewski hurt him in round 2. Brown would be significantly better if he paced, and if he just had the fight IQ to avoid where he isn't good, but he should still be able to beat a 40-year-old Dalby, realistically. Dalby's going to try to clinch, get this to the fence, but he's probably just going to be a worse version of Brian Battle in all reality. Like, I can't see 40-year-old Dalby having any significant danger. Yes, I know he finished, what's his name? Bonfim, right? Gabriel Bonfim, but that was because Bonfim deathgassed. It wasn't because he actually finished him. Like, if we look at the rest of his career, that was his first UFC finish, it seems like. So, he is not the most dangerous fighter on the feet. He will probably win round 3, if he can survive that long. Dalby tends to just win every round 3 he's in, and Brown does slow down. But Brown should take rounds 1 and 2 relatively easily, and that's if he cannot finish Dalby in round 1. And I would not be surprised if he did finish Dalby in round 1, because Dalby is aging, and Brown is very precise early. Like, this concept that Dalby's just going to be a cardio machine and just keep moving through everything as he's like 41, 42, etc., it's just not realistic. Dalby got robbed versus Renat. that fight could have gone either way, in my opinion, but I do get what you're saying. Dalby's going to force the clinch and bully him. He can try, but I just don't think he's going to be able to do it as well as he did as well as Battle did, to say the least. And even Battle, I thought, lost against Brown, because Brown was landing all the significant strikes in that fight. Battle was just stalling for the most part. Did you think that Brown got robbed against Battle? Yeah, I did. I think that Brown did pretty clearly win, but to be fair, he should have made it much more clear. Depends which Brown shows up. Yeah, I'd normally agree with you, but against a 40-year-old, like, I have a lot of respect for Dalby. He's done a lot at his, like, older age, but if Brown loses this somehow, he just has no future in MMA, and I think he knows that. So I do think that he is going to piece up Dalby here, at least for the first 2 rounds. So I'm going to officially take Brown by decision. Even though Brown is precise early, he just tends to not really put things together to get the finish. He could be much better than he is. I always feel like I say that when Brown fights. Like, every time it's like, oh, if he put things together a bit better, he would be a ranked fighter, but he hasn't so far. We'll see if he can do it this time. Now the battle of who has worse cardio. So, everyone remembers what happened with Michel Pereira last time out against Fluffy, I'd imagine. I expected that to happen. I picked Fluffy. I didn't expect Michel to gas out in round 1. I thought we would get to like round 3, and then Fluffy would take over. Pereira gassing out in like 2 exchanges in round 1 was one of the worst looks I've seen. Obviously, he's very dangerous for that first half of round 1. He could finish Abus in 20 different ways if he lands something. But if he doesn't, he's probably screwed, because even though Abus doesn't have the best cardio either, like, he has enough cardio to go to a decision. He can win the later rounds, especially with the grappling. And his striking isn't bad. I don't think that Michel is going to be able to knock him out that easily. So I do have to lean towards Abus, because I think he can stay safe early, maybe try to grapple, and if Michel Pereira does what he's done all of his other fights and just tries to knock him out, well, Abus is going to take over rounds 2 and 3. This fight, on the bright side, should be exciting. Abus got thrown into the deep end way too early. Like, fighting Strickland in what I think was his 2nd fight in the UFC, and then fighting Kaio in his 3rd fight, like, yeah, that wasn't going to go well. But against these, like, borderline ranked fighters, and then maybe even, like, 10 to 15 ranked, I do think he has a chance. He's very well-rounded. He can stall out to grapple here, which is good against Pereira, and he could probably either lock up a late submission or more likely a decision, 29-28. Abus looked competent against better competition. Pereira is a more athletic Bruno who Abus just fought. Yeah, you could say that. I do think that Abus and Bruno are a bit different, because Pereira is more likely to throw, like, high kicks, let's say, or go for dynamic subs. So the skill set is a bit different. But I do understand what you're saying. Abus got pushed too fast. Yeah, 100%. I'm surprised. A lot of people are on Pereira's side, but all of us seem to be on the same page about Abus, so I guess we're all seeing the same things. I am also surprised that Pereira is a favorite. Like, I thought this would just be even money, in all honesty, but I guess it's because that Pereira could get the first round finish. Like, that would not be surprising in the slightest. Yeah. Keep accidentally clicking on them. Okay, Shikadze versus Onama. This fight is going to be very interesting. So, starting with Onama, he's extremely athletic and powerful, but he doesn't get nearly as many finishes as you would imagine for his ability. Like, everything he throws is like a little off time. So, off time, off like, what's the best way of describing that? It just feels off. I don't even know how to fully say it. But like, he's never throwing at the correct time, and he's never throwing in the correct manner. Like, when he should be throwing a looping shot, he throws a straight shot. When he's supposed to be throwing a straight shot, he throws a looping shot. He got cracked against Romero and hurt early. It wasn't a great look, given that Romero took it on very short notice and shouldn't be beating competition of that level. Granted, of course, Onama came back, but it wasn't a great start, to say the least. Onama's defense isn't great. The fact that he hasn't finished his last 2 opponents aren't great either. Like, Romero was death-gassed in round 3. Let's find that fight. Yeah, it was 41 to 9 shots in round 3, and he couldn't find a finish. And I don't like that when you're supposed to be a power puncher. Also against Jonathan Pierce, Like, yeah, he technically got the decision, and he was able to deal with a lot of the grappling situations, which is good on him, sure. But in the last rounds, Pierce is literally just brawling with him, and he can't knock out Pierce, who's not like some spectacular striker by any means. So I think that Onama is a bit overrated right now, in all honesty. Like, he has had good performances, but not at the level that we would need to really see him go into the rankings. Chikadze, on the other hand, like, has proven himself in the rankings. He is a bit older now, but his fight against Allen was close. His left kick is very good, and I don't know how Onama will deal with it, especially when he was getting chewed up by calf kicks in his last fight. He may land the high kick at some point because Onama has a tendency to move his hands in weird positions, especially after exchanges. So I do have to lean Chikadze, probably by decision, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it was a knockout. Like, I feel like everyone is forgetting who Giga was before he just started fighting very good fighters. Like, okay, he lost to Calvin Kattar in his prime. Like, okay, that's not a big deal. Kattar was pretty good. He lost to Arnold Allen, and it was a pretty close fight. Like, no big deal. Arnold Allen is pretty good. But other than that, like, okay, the Caceres performance was not amazing, to be fair, but Caceres also is tricky. He is very long. Knocked out Barboza. Knocked out Swanson. Like, he does go to decisions more often than you would like early in his career, but I feel like if he puts things together, he could finish Onama and really make a statement here. Giga was an inch away from KOing Allen with that flying kick. Yeah, he was. I feel Giga wins this 29-28. Yeah, very possible. I think Giga could win this 29-28. I feel like he could get a head kick finish, even maybe a liver kick finish. Like, the only reason I could see Giga winning this is age. If he's slowing down and he just doesn't look how he used to, yeah, he could 100% lose this. But the fact that he is an underdog and Onama isn't just ranked quality, in my opinion, I don't really see it. Giga's old and has gone through a ton of injuries. That is true. Which is why I understand why Giga isn't like minus 150, minus 200, even though his skill set would like suggest that he should be. But he still should win this, even if he looks like how he did last fight. Like, in the Arnold Allen fight, which, yes, was a year ago, but unless he's had... Does anyone know if he's had any significant injuries since? Because if he has, that might change things. But if he's the same person he was against Arnold Allen, he should finish this. Alright, we'll move on to the next one. But I do really want to see this fight, because if Onama wins, that just means Onama's much better than I thought he was, and then I'd be excited to see Onama against ranked competition. But if Giga wins, which is what I expect, well then, I guess Giga gets another shot up the rankings, or maybe he needs one more fight than he does. Don't know why Onama's getting the step up. I guess you kind of had to give it to him. Like, he did beat Jonathan Pierce and Gabriel Santos. Like, neither of those are bad wins, to say the least. But yeah, I mean, I don't think he's necessarily going to win the fight up, but I'm okay with him taking it. When you're going to drop the John Jones Kryptonite video. So I already did an Instagram a while ago. Full YouTube video, I am considering. It might be a good time to do that. A lot of people seemed more interested in the Aspinall one, but there definitely is more material to work with the Jones one, so I may do that first. All right. Anthony Smith, jeez, versus Zhang Minyang. So, okay, before I get to that, how much influence do you think Jones dictating when training starts influences the fight with Aspinall if it does happen? I think Jones might have started already. It's not the same when you're unsure. I don't think it really matters, in all honesty. Aspinall should be training. It would be pretty foolish for him to not be training for Jones right now. Alright, so this fight quickly. Everyone knows Anthony Smith. He doesn't need much of an introduction. He is pretty well-rounded. In his prime, he was dangerous with his hands and with submission. Problem is, in recent years, yeah, he has a tendency to just curl up in a ball and get hit. I mean, like, there's not much I can say about that. Smith's biggest danger is with the grappling, and ironically, possibly cardio. So the only real problem with Zhang is he's literally only had round 1 wins. Every single fight he has won, he has finished in round 1. So if this goes into round 2 or 3, I would not be shocked if Smith caught up a submission somewhere or won a decision. Granted, can Smith survive to round 2? That's a bit difficult because, I mean, Jang is going to come forwards and doesn't really care what he's hit with and just unload. He is pretty technical as well. Like, even though he does fight like Terminator, his movement is pretty solid. He will move out of the way of things and just bomb forwards. He is going to look for, we're getting a stance. He's orthodox, okay. I feel like he did switch to southpaw 1 point in his last fight. But either way, he's just going to throw until you fall. I mean, mostly punches, very few kicks. He is capable of some grappling pre-UFC, I saw. He has a few submissions on his record, and he isn't helpless if it hits the ground. So I don't think we're going to see a fraud check where, like, oh, he gets taken down once and he's screwed. Like, no, if he gets taken down, he should be able to make his way back to the feet. If you're going to bet on this fight, you probably just have to bet in round 1. Because the reality is, like, is minus 520. That's probably not worth it at this point. I think Jang is overrated can crusher, but Smith is another can. Yeah, at this age, Smith is just not that good is the reality. I mean, like, he's physically changed so much also. He used to be significantly, like, stronger and just visibly more ripped. So, I don't know how Smith wins this. Like, he has to find a way to get it to the grounds and finish it there. Maybe he could just stall out, clinch a lot into round 2, and then try to get a takedown. That'd probably be the best approach for him. But the reality is he's just going to get walked down. John KO's Lionheart, but I feel like Anthony is overhated by the community. It's possible. He says a lot of things that are very easily misinterpreted. Like, I don't think his intention with saying it is terrible, but it just comes off in the worst way possible. Like, he's very bad at phrasing things. Zhang lost to the guy that faked his record to enter UFC. Okay, but Zhang is also not very old. Like, 1998, so he's 26 right now. So when he lost, he was like probably, what, 22, 21? So he could definitely grow. I'm not saying that he's amazing, but like, can he get it done against an old Anthony Smith? Most likely. Will you be happy if Smith goes out on a round 1 KO on a rising prospect? Honestly, I'll be pretty neutral. I don't have any particular love or hate for Smith. I don't think it's possible. I don't think he's going to get a KO here. I think if he wins this somehow, it's like stall out round 1, maybe even round 2, and then get a finish in round 3. Zhang round 2 KO. That'd be interesting if he went past the first rounds in a win for the first time. Smith was unironically the one who did the best against Reyes while he's been on his resurgence. I mean, yes, but best just means quite literally surviving. And like, Smith has always had a good chin and avoided overextending. Like, if we look at the fight, it's 121 strikes to 21. Like, it was very one-sided. Round 2 was 73 strikes to 0. Like, I don't know why the ref even waited that long. He should have just stopped it. Like, Smith was not fighting. Smith pulled 2-on-1 wrist control, yeah. Do you fight, and have you ever considered fighting? Complicated answer. I can't fight now, unfortunately. But I have trained my whole life, and I have done some stuff in the past. Maybe I'll talk about it more at some point, but not right now. Just because Jacoby walked into a right hand and Krylov came back from the Ukraine war means Smith had the best performance. I mean, the Jacoby win was definitely impressive. Krylov, it's hard to say how he was or not, like, just mentally and physically. What's up, brother? How are you? I'm alright. How are you? Smith to me is like that. I don't know what you're saying. I think you're just saying he's overhated, so you want to root for him. Fair enough. We know very little about Zhang because he's only fought cans and he's finished them all in round 1. Yeah, very accurate. And Yang can beat Jones and Aspinall at the same time. Smith lasted the longest. Like, yeah, technically true, but it is what it is. Like, he was getting completely destroyed. Yeah, I get what you mean. Gaming. That's a cool story. That's a cool backstory if you become a coach. Thanks, yeah. We'll see what happens. Reyes winning against Krylov made me happy for Reyes, but also ruined my multi was conflicting. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Honest thoughts on Reyes title aspirations now. Okay, so funny thing is, late last year, I did place a future bet on Reyes becoming champion in 2025, just because the odds were absolutely ridiculous. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. But does he have a chance at becoming champ at one point again? Yeah, it is possible. Like, let's look at Reyes' age. I'm forgetting. Yeah, I guess that's the only problem, is he's on the older side. But so is a lot of that division, to be fair. Like, obviously, Alex Pereira is pretty old also. I guess the question is, how would Reyes match up with someone like Ankalaev, and could he adjust to beat someone like Yuri? Yuri's always going to be a tough matchup for him. Maybe with the improved counter-striking, and just more of a reliance on that, rather than, like, going into Yuri, because a lot of the problems that Reyes had is because he was trying to push into Yuri early. And Yuri's just going to gun you at that point, basically, because he can take your shots and you can't take his. So I do think Reyes has a chance, but he would have to start fighting very frequently, very quickly, and make it up, because at the older age, I don't like his chances. Like, even if Glover did it at a very strange time, and even the fight he did it in was very weird. So I don't see anyone really replicating that and doing it at an older age. Jan had a chance if he was given the win over Ulberg, but that's not going to happen now. Would you coach MMA? Yeah, in some capacity. I mean, I kind of do in some capacity as well already. Like, some people send me their stuff before they go into amateur or regional fights right now. Reyes is finished. I mean, I don't know if he's finished yet. He definitely seems like he's on a resurgence. We haven't seen him get cracked at all during his resurgence. He did get cracked against Jacoby early. And I thought he was just screwed because he got cracked early and I didn't see him coming back, but he did and got the knockout, so fair play. Would love to see Reyes fight Rakic. Yeah, that would be nice. Do you think Reyes versus Rakic is the way to go? Yeah, I do. If Ankalaev lands, Reyes is pretty much done. Yeah, quite possible. Reyes was landing great shots on Yuri, though. It's just Yuri's chin is dumb. Yeah, but you just can't fight that way against Yuri because he will be able to take the shots. Unironically, think Reyes beats Jan and Ulberg but gets KO'd by the top guys. I mean, Jan is always going to be a really tough matchup for him, because the reality is that Reyes thrives when people are coming forward to add him and he can step back and counter, like he did the last few times. Jan is not going to overextend. He's just going to wait, blast you with kicks, and then wait for you to make a mistake. So, although Jan is old now, maybe Reyes has a better chance. It was just always going to be a nightmare matchup for him. What do you think wins Ilya versus Islam? I'll get to that a bit later after we finish the full card breakdown, technically. Alright, let's move on to the main event. This one confused me a lot, so I'm going to take some water first. So Garry is weird. I was watching Gary's tape, and I felt like Garry was underrated going into the Shavkat fight, which is why I picked him against Shavkat, because I felt like Shavkat did a lot of things wrong. His striking defense isn't great, his grappling isn't amazing, and so on. However, now I feel like Gary's a bit overrated. Because if we look at Gary's actual results, like, he hasn't had any spectacular results. Let's go back to this. So we're looking at a close decision against MVP, an old MVP at that. A split decision against Jeff Neal. Like, yes, he did dominate Magny, but he didn't finish him. Like, the only great performance was the D-Rod one, and that's an older D-Rod. I was looking at a lot of film, and I was trying to do a video on Ian Garry's biggest weakness, like the same as I did for Prates. And I was struggling with it until I realized that Garry does not have a skill issue. What Garry has is he actually just has very bad reflexes, because he gets hit by bombs, not because he's in the wrong place or because he has the bad reactions, but because he actually just does not notice the strike coming and move quickly enough to deal with it. So Shavkat was able to land overhands. MVP was able to land overhands. Jeff Neal was able to blitz in and land stuff. So Garry is just slow, or not slow, but he's just slow to respond to things. I think that's going to be a problem in this matchup, because he does not want to get cracked by Prates. Like, you can survive getting hit by Shavkat. He has knockout power, but he's probably not going to finish you in one punch. It's probably going to be an accumulation of damage. Prates, on the other hand, I mean, everyone he's touched has just died, basically. And even though he has the problem with going backwards, I don't think Garry can punish it, because even though Garry does have his little blitzes forwards, he doesn't land anything of substance when he does that. Like, Garry really just needs you to stand in front of him so he can just find his volume and then eventually find something that does damage. But Prates isn't going to just stand there and like kind of box with him. Like every time he throws is going to be with an intent. So even though I initially was going to lead Garry in this fight, I am going to pick Prates by KO in round 2 because Garry is going to back up, let Prates find his punches, hit him at the end of his punches, and the chances are is Gary's just going to be too slow at responding to react to them. So even if he dodges the first few, which he well might, like Garry does not have bad distance management. It's just once you get past it, he will get hit. So Prates will probably have to adjust a few times, but like the rest of the fighting nerds, he is pretty good at making those adjustments and then finding his shots. So I think Garry will be skirting on the outside, get clipped with something at the end of his punch, fall down once or twice, and then eventually run into something and go out cold. I feel Ian's chin can handle Prates' power. I don't think so. I mean, I understand that maybe he can get a few times, or he could get hit a few times and handle it, but once he's getting hit 5, 6, 7 times by clean shots, I don't think it's going to be okay. I don't think Garry will get flatlined but I think that Prates will hurt him bad. It's possible. I think it depends how many times that Garry survives getting hit, because each time you get dropped, you're a lot more likely to get KO'd flat the next time that you do get dropped. So I think that if it looks like the Leech, where it's like, okay, Garry survives 2, 3 knockdowns, then the next one's likely to put him out cold. I have to buy Fighting Nerds glasses, valid. If Garry isn't dumb, he's going to grapple him to win. Okay, I understand that thought, but when has Garry had that good wrestling that he can initiate the grappling? I understand that Gary's grappling is pretty solid, but his wrestling isn't, because if we look at even the Page fight, like he got the takedown in round 1, almost had the finish, fair play. He failed the takedown in round 2, and then he failed 2 takedowns in round 3. He got reversed on one of those takedowns and lands on his back. Like, that's not what you want to see against MVP. You don't want to be barely out-wrestling MVP. MVP has no wrestling whatsoever. And then against Shavkat, like, yes, he had officially 1 takedown. But again, that's a 1 takedown, and he couldn't really wrestle on the fence well in that fight. He basically just used the fact that Shavkat was slowing down and then eventually found, like, a moment. But I do think that his grappling is pretty overrated. Sorry, his wrestling is pretty overrated. His grappling is good, but I don't think he can get the fight to the ground to use it. I think after the Shavkat fight, he probably fixed up some issues there. Defensively, I agree. I doubt he's going to get caught in a clinch on the fence again, but I don't think he could improve his offensive shots so much that he can just take down Prates all of a sudden. Because Prates has nearly perfect takedown defense. Let's see, I'm forgetting what it exactly is. Yeah, 91% takedown defense. He got taken down once, and that was on Contender Series. Like, I just don't see him getting taken down. If Garry can survive until round 3, round 4, he's going to have an advantage for sure, because I do see Prates gassing out. But I just don't know how he does that unless he can like completely distance manage his way to a win. It's possible. I'm not saying Garry can't win at all, but I do think that Prates does have the edge here. You're right, Shoot a Box doesn't focus on wrestling much. Yeah, exactly. Thoughts on Garry by KO? If you're going to take Garry by KO, I'm not going to say it can't happen, but you would probably want to take something like Garry in rounds 3, 4, or 5, rather than just like KO. Because I don't think he's going to get a KO early. I think if he finishes Prates, it's because Prates slows down a lot and Garry just puts on the volume. What do you think is the best fighting nerd? Probably John Silva. Also, that Prates' cardio is doubtful. Yes, it definitely is. If we get into later rounds, I definitely am going to favor Garry. How does he... Assume you're asking if a 91% takedown defense is good or decent. 91% takedown defense is great. Anything above 70% I say is decent, but then once we get to like say 85%, that goes like good and then great. If Silva and Rufi fought, who do you have in that fight? Probably Silva, honestly. Prates has that scary a touch of death like power. Yeah, for sure. who has more than 91% takedown defense. I think like Prime Tyron Woodley did, and I think Kamaru Usman might. I don't know if he still does after the Chimaev fight. Machado third round KO, that would be impressive. How do you think Protez JDM would play out? Because Protez has problems on the back foot, and unlike Garry, JDM can just blitz forwards and threaten a lot. I do think JDM would catch him. I'd imagine Protez would struggle with a stronger wrestler like Bilal, but that's not Garry. Yeah, it's definitely possible. I mean, the thing about the Bilal-Protez matchup is that Bilal has really bad striking defense, so if he can't wrestle the entire time, he's getting flatlines. But I definitely could imagine that Bilal is able to wrestle enough that it just gasses out Protez completely. Aldo greatest takedown defense? Yeah, for sure. Would you ever pick Hamza to beat DDP? No, realistically. What about Jones? Yeah, I think he is. I think he got taken down once, so he's at like 97% or 98% or something. Is it dumb to think Sean Brady could beat or at least 50-50 with every welterweight? He could. He just needs the right game plan and preferably a bit more power in his hands. Like, the Bilal fight's always going to be tough because Brady probably isn't going to be taking him down and just doesn't really have the power to hurt him on the feet. If he could get a little bit more power, it's possible. What, you don't think Hamza beats Drakus? I just don't see it happening because I don't think he's going to be able to take down and control Drakus. Drakus is significantly, like, pure strength-wise stronger than him, I believe, and I do think that his ability to get up technically is very good. Even though he got taken down by Whitaker, which is what a lot of people point to, when he got up, it was very technical. Hamza Mauls DDP? Unlikely. I just don't see Chimaev ever winning that, but it's possible. Could Brady out-wrestle Islam if they ever fought? Yes, I do think so. I think that in terms of like pure like grappling and wrestling ability, Brady is probably a bit better. The question is, could he get him down consistently enough to do damage? I'm not sure about that. Then why do top analysts hype Hamza's wrestling up so much? Hamza's wrestling is very good in that he's very explosive early and he sticks to his game plan, which is get to the body lock, use that to cut the corner, and get to the back. However, if you can just focus on like, okay, I'm just going to grab the overhook and then just chill out and wait until he has to move, you can definitely prevent his wrestling. Because that's what Burns and Liskov did. And if you just hang on to that overhook for life, like, they don't really have much of it. He doesn't have much of a second game plan there. Moises and Saryukin fight stand out to me. I think Brady can find a submission. It's possible. I just don't know if someone is actually going to finish Islam on the ground. Like, his pure like submission grappling game is definitely better than Khabib's was. I would say his overall like grappling / wrestling is worse, but in terms of like, okay, without striking, let me navigate positions, it seems like it's better than Khabib. Let's see. Do you think Izzy could change? What do you think Izzy could change up in a rematch with Strickland? He has to pressure, which is possible. Like, Strickland is pressurable for DDP. For DDP, for Adesanya. if he moves forwards and is willing to trade with him and get hit, he could win the fight. I think it is always going to be a bad fight because Izzy does thrive on the counter-striking, but it's not like it's like, okay, I think Izzy could never win this fight. What do you think about Figgy being a $4 underdog against Sandhagen? It's a bit extreme. I do think Sandhagen wins just because of the age difference at this point, honestly, but I wouldn't be shocked if Figgy could crack him enough to win a decision. Which current UFC fighter do you think beats Ilia Topuria? Okay, good time for that question, yes. So, to beat Topuria, you need to be someone who's basically going to crack him in the pocket and you're willing to throw with him while dodging a shot. So, if you guys watch the video on that, when he throws, he's usually throwing the left hook or the right overhand. Those are the two things you need to worry about. So, if you're willing to slip that and crack him at the same time, you're going to have success. So, who is going to do that at featherweight and lightweight are different stories. At featherweight, I would have said John Silva. He is not really scared to throw no matter how much power you have. I do think John Silva would have had a reasonable chance at clipping him. At lightweight, it's a bit of a weirder story because there's a lot of people who I feel like could beat Topuria, but I'm not confident. Like, Oliveira, in my opinion, is a worse matchup for Topuria than Islam is. Because Islam is going to do the predictable, let me throw a right hook counter every time you throw and back up in a straight line. Oliveira is just going to keep moving forwards and throw, even if it's a threat to his chin. So he has a bigger chance of like catching him as he's moving forwards. That being said, would I take Oliveira to beat Topuria? Probably not. Top 3 MMA wrestlers in your opinion? I would put Chimaev there. And I do think, let's see, who else? Probably Pantoja. And what's a third? Maybe Jones, as much as I don't like him. What do you think Prates fights after if he wins or loses? If he wins, he has a good argument of fighting for the title soon. Maybe they'll put him in a title elimination against Brady. If he loses, probably a Neil fight still. Islam versus Ilya in depth. What do you think? I think I favor Islam. So, because of the fact that Islam has a very predictable striking pattern in which he's going to back up and basically just give Topuria the situation he wants, I have to favor Topuria. However, there is a clear weakness that Topuria has that people aren't really talking about, which is that he trains every discipline in combat sports separately. He doesn't train pure MMA, which is a bit problematic when you're fighting Islam, because he's going to chain the striking into the wrestling. Now, coincidentally, or not so coincidentally, when Topuria was fighting Mitchell, the one time he did get taken down was because Mitchell threw and then immediately switched into the single leg, I believe. So, I could see a world in which Islam really exposes that Topuria has some wrestling defense issues, and that he can't transition from striking to wrestling very quickly. So I would not be shocked regardless of who won. Just because that Islam has so many patterns that I feel like favor Topuria, I do have to favor Topuria. Were you surprised by Nasruddin KO on Izzy? Yeah, I was a bit. I was favoring Imov to win that fight, but I didn't think that he had that power. Current use of Zalal gives Topuria issues. I don't think so, to be honest. I think that Topuria would do a much better job at trapping him in terms of his footwork this time, and it would give Zalal problems. Oliveira doesn't move his head enough, though. Yeah, which is why he probably would get clipped, but it is possible that he wins because of the fact that he's moving forwards. Do you think Whitaker could make a comeback at this point in his career, and what should be changed? Probably because he's just so blitz dependent. Like, he would have to rework his entire style, and I'm not saying that's impossible, but it's very difficult at this point in his career. Bucker Prates, by the way. Who were you going to pick, Prates or Jeff? I was split on that one. I was really not sure. I think that Jeff has the ability to win that. The problem is that he just doesn't always fight to his potential. It's very strange. Just timing out a few people, by the way. Give me a sec. I'm not used to navigating all of this. Okay, there we go. Izzy reflexes look slower. Not sure if it was Imovov's power. Okay, I've disputed the fact that it was Izzy's reflexes look slower because Imov did a good job at taking his eyes away from where Imov was throwing. So he basically shot before he set up the overhand. Or let me phrase that better. I did a video on this. I don't remember exactly how I phrased it, but I think basically in the previous sequence, he threw a jab and then he immediately shot. And then in the following sequence, he threw a jab, and then when Izzy's eyes went down, he immediately throws the overhand over. What do you think What do you think about the idea of Oliveira grappling Ilya like he did Chandler? It might not be a bad idea, just to see how far he could get with that. We haven't really seen Ilya tested there. It's really hard to say. Who has better reflexes, John Silva or Prime Connor? I would say that Connor has better reflexes. Silva has better reads. I think that Ilya could trust his grappling more against Charles than DDP or Gaethje could. Oh, for sure. I mean, Ilya is definitely a better grappler than Dustin Poirier or Gaethje. I usually refer to the fake takedown to overhand as the LWC uses it a lot. Fair enough. Prime Connor was wired to 1 millisecond response time was wild. Yeah, for sure. I feel like Silva's hardest fight at featherweight is Allen. Allen is very fundamentally sound, so yeah, I don't disagree with you. Are you favoring Volk or Evloev if they were to fight? I'm favoring Volk. I just can't see Evloev getting him down consistently enough to win. On the feet, Volk is just more fundamentally sound, so I just don't see how Evloev wins that. Early prediction on Klein versus Gamrot. It's a good fight. I do like that they made that fight. A lot of people are hating on it just because Klein hasn't had the most entertaining performances, but when you put two pretty solid grapplers together, you get some interesting stuff. I do think that Gamrot is going to take a 29-28. I think in round 1, Klein's striking will be better. He might even tag Gamrot a few times. I think Gamrot's better grappling will take over as the fight goes along. I think if Volk tries to wrestle Evloev, he might lose. I just don't think Volk is going to try to wrestle Evloev. So had... I'm confused what you're saying. Oh, he had no reason to trade with Diego in the pocket? Well, I think what he was trying to do in the early rounds against Diego was make a point that Diego just can't run into the pocket, because if he wasn't able to establish some threat there, then Diego was going to be able to walk him down too easily. So I do think there was a reason to. Would it have been the game plan I would have chosen? Probably not, but I do get why he did it. If Evloev doesn't get the next title shot against Volk, who do you want to see? Silva. Forget it, just... like, I don't think Yair deserves it, and I think that Silva coming up is a lot more interesting. Isn't it a 5-rounder? Which one? Do you think Robert Whittaker can win against Chimaev if he did not break his chin? I don't think so. Whittaker always has a tendency to give up his back whenever he's in a wrestling exchange, so I think that was always going to cause problems against Chimaev. Yair versus Lopez, who wins? Honestly, I'm going to take the unpopular take here and say Yair probably wins. I think that Lopez, his footwork just isn't good enough. Like we saw in the fight against Volk, he wasn't setting up anything with his footwork, he was just throwing. Yair is just going to probably dance around him and outscore. Who should John Silva fight if not for the title? I would think Leon Murphy. When do you think 317 will be announced? I have no clue anymore. What are your thoughts on middleweight prospects such as Malik, Gutierrez, and Marco Tulio? By the way, I was talking about the Gamrot fight. If it's 5 rounds, it definitely favors Gamrot even more. If it's 3 rounds, I still think Gamrot, but it is closer. I think that Gutierrez looked very impressive in his last fight. Tulio looked very impressive in his last fight. Malik did not. So I'm much more excited about Gutierrez and Tulio. Lopez is tough, but needs to use his feet. Yeah, 100%. Who do you predict will be the 317 main events? Honestly, they're just making it very confusing at this point. I don't know. How does Charles versus Arman 2 5 rounds go? So, given that Charles is older and Arman is adapting, I do have to unfortunately favor Arman. But I do think that it's a winnable fight for Charles, and I think that with his improved wrestling, he definitely has a chance. Thoughts on Brian Ortega? I mean, he has to change so much if he wants to have a chance in the modern landscape. Ortega is just, he has a very antiquated skill set, unfortunately. I think Diego being the much better grappler and bigger than Yair takes him down in subsequent ground and pound. Yair's takedown defense looked vastly improved last fight, and he is training consistently now. Training with Bilal is paying off for him. So I don't think Diego will get him down that easily. It's possible. Not going to say it's not, but I just wouldn't predict it. What argument would you make in favor of Hamza beating DDP? So if I had to argue that Hamza beats DDP, how would I do it? Interesting question. I would say that DDP can be a little bit too slow at times. So Chimaev, with his explosive start, could probably catch something. I still don't believe it's true, but if Chimaev is going to win, it's just because of speed difference, in my opinion. Diego doesn't use his grappling, so I wouldn't count on him using it in a fight against Yair. Yeah, he doesn't offensively wrestle much. I think that Diego could trust his chin enough to the point where he could trade with him. I mean, Diego can definitely trade with Yair. It's just Yair can outkick him. What champ do you think had the most entertaining title reign? Good question. Probably Anderson Silva. I would love to see Yair versus Diego for UFC Noche. 100%. Ortega beating Yair had me livid after hurting him too. Yeah, Yair just had very not great fight IQ that fight. How do you see Bilal versus JDM going? I think that JDM could pull the upset. I think that Bilal's striking defense is not great, and as long as JDM just keeps scrambling back to his feet, which will be easier against Bilal than it will be against Burns, I do think eventually he could find something that puts out Bilal. Are you still siding with Charles over Max? Yeah, I think that Charles has enough power to hurt Max, while Max, not that he can't hurt Charles, but he's not going to have the same power as someone like Islam or Dustin Poirier. And Charles also, of course, can switch to grappling whenever he wants to. So I think that there's just too many threats that Charles has over Max. How do you see Hamza versus Imov 5 rounds? Chimaev definitely has a good shot of finishing in round 1. But if he can't, then Imov will pick him apart for the rest of it. So I would still pick Chimaev, but I would not be shocked at all if Imov finished him in round 3 or 4. Robbie Lawler had the most entertaining reign. Okay, that's a fair pick for sure. Charles had the second most. That's also a very fair pick. How would you see Prime Tony versus Arm in 5 rounds? That's a good one. I would favor Tony because I can't see Armin landing significant damage on top with how much that Tony was going to scramble. And I do think that Tony in his prime actually had much better takedown defense than people remember. So I think Tony could do enough damage to win a decision. But I do think it would probably go to decision. What would you do to improve the UFC product? And I think this UFC is dead or dying talk is a bit overboard. I don't think UFC is dead or dying. It just seems like at times they decrease the amount of effort they put in. I don't fully know why. How would I improve it? I think that their signings need to be very different and their pay structure needs to be different. I would give a finish bonus, not a win bonus. And I think that people need to be given initial contracts based on like how far they can actually go. Not like, okay, we're just going to give everyone the same contract. Prime Volk or Prime Khabib? Khabib, I think he would be able to get him down. I think he had much better ability to get an opponent down than Islam does. Why is scrambling out of positions easier against Bilal over Burns for JDM? Because Burns has much more of a threat and he's much better than pure jiu-jitsu. So Bilal isn't going to submit you. Burns could submit you from anywhere. What are your thoughts on Max's takedown defense? Very good on paper, but he's never fought a very strong grappler. His takedown defense is definitely solid, but would it hold up against Oliveira over a long fight? I don't necessarily think so. Like, he did get taken down by Topuria. Topuria just didn't really try to control him that much. And to be fair, Max did scramble well. I just don't see it going as well against Oliveira. JDM doesn't have one punch power, and Bilal's takedowns can interrupt Jack's long combos. JDM might not have literal one punch power, but he's not that far off. Like, he might need a combination to finish you, but it's not like he needs like heavy volume. Bilal's takedowns can interrupt maybe, but JDM's going to look for knees, and he's basically just going to be looking to finish the fight whenever it's on the feet. I'm leaning Ilya against Islam in terms of striking, but I definitely think Islam could take it. Yeah, that's basically my take as well. I don't get the Imov hype. He hasn't looked good in any of his last 3 wins to me. Imov is very fast for that weight class and makes reads better than anyone else I've seen at that weight class. So the reason why I'm excited for Imov is because his setups are spectacular. Like the whole jab to shot, then jab to overhand thing was just amazing to watch for me. Do I think he's going to be champ? Yeah, it's hard to say, but I am excited to see him fight again. Prime Tony Ferguson versus Max Holloway, who wins? Prime Tony Ferguson. He would just cause too much bleeding with the elbows. Prime Tony had very similar grappling to Chase Hooper, just much stronger and quicker. Yeah, that's a pretty good comparison. How do you think Prime Tony would do in today's welterweight lineup? I think that he wouldn't do as well at a welterweight as he would do at a lightweight. Well, actually, the weird thing is that Tony had much better one-punch knockout power at welterweight, so I'm not 100% sure. Like, thinking about it, like, I think Tony would definitely beat Ian Garry. I think he would have a good shot against Sean Brady. Yeah, actually, maybe he would do pretty well. He would have a chance at being champ. Pratas just made weight 10 minutes ago. Nice. I think the UFC is dead talks. All depend on how card performs. After UFC 314, everyone loved the UFC again. Okay, well, I think part of the issue is that we are looking at the UFC from non-casual perspective. Like, if you are here and you are watching MMA content with me, you're probably not a casual. So that's just like the reality of things. But for casuals, like, or how I measure the success of the UFC is how much hype they're getting among casuals. So I think that they are, like, quote unquote dying in terms of the fact that they are not appealing to casuals and there's like less hype going to events now. Max doesn't have crazy takedown defense, but his anti-grappling is insane. You can't control him at all. I think he just pieces Charles up. Yeah, I mean, his grappling is great. His anti-grappling, we should say, yeah, is great. What argument would you make for John Jones being Tom Aspinall? I think that Aspinall is very predictable, and that's not something you want to be against Jones. I think Jones would game plan very well for the Aspinall 1-2 and such, and just be able to stall out until he could find his positions. How do you think Holloway's anti-grappling would hold up against Arman? I think that Holloway would have a decent chance of beating Arman just because Arman doesn't have like a immediate threat of finishing you on the ground. So someone like Oliveira, it's different because you can't make mistakes in getting up. But with Arman, like, you can give your back to get up. It doesn't really matter. Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier, now who wins? I'm going to favor Max Holloway because he is younger, and I think at 155 he still has more to give, but I'm not certain. When did we actually lose Prime Tony? The knee injury, in my opinion. A lot of UFC's downfalls due to worker pay and conservatism. I mean, you could say that for sure. Why do you think only a select few fighters have cracked the Dagestani/crotch stiff and stall style? Volk and Kai France, to name a couple. Because it's a very different style than you learn when you are coming up in the sport. So fighters adapt to what they see in the training room when they're younger. They don't really see the Dagestani style when they're younger, so they don't know how to deal with it. It's very alien to them, so to speak. So to figure out the style, they end up having to train specifically for it, and it's hard to just train over, say, a 3-month camp for a new style. You have to be doing that for years. Alexander Volkanovski versus Colby Covington. I think Volk could take it. How would you see Imov versus DDP? So I've said for a while that while I don't think Imov is the best fighter at middleweight, I think he's a very bad matchup for DDP. I think that Imov's reads could kind of negate DDP's game planning to an extent, and Imov's speed would make it very hard for DDP. So I would favor Imov to just barely take a decision there. Did you see Max in Korea? No, I didn't. What happened there? I missed Tony's prime, and I don't think I have a grasp on it. So explain why people say he was so good. So Tony's prime was basically the definition of having a threat from literally every single position. He could be behind, like he could miss a punch by a long shot and still come around with a spinning elbow. You could throw at him, he could just slip it barely and come over with a knockout punch. He could be off his back and be splitting you open with elbows. He could go for weird submissions off his back. He could roll out of things in ways that other people weren't. So Tony was just constant pace and threat, while it felt like people could not really hurt him enough to stop him. How do we think O'Malley does in the Merab rematch? I'm picking O'Malley again. I think that O'Malley has the tools to beat Merab. He just fought the first fight very stupidly. If O'Malley just calms down, throws teeps, knees, and just jabs from the outside, the reality is I don't see how Merab's going to get to him. Max is with Korean Zombie in Korea right now. That's interesting. It'll be cool to see if that changes his style at all. Imov can't fight at the pace of DDP. I do think he can. I think that he can because he will be able to tag DDP early, just because of superior speed. But it would be an interesting fight. Tony was organized chaos in his prime. Yeah, exactly. Khabib versus Prime Tony, who wins? Unpopular take, but I think Prime Tony takes it. I don't think, Prime Tony had much better takedown defense than anyone seems to understand. And he could keep creating the threat off his back, unlike anyone else Khabib fought. So I don't see how Khabib would be able to really hurt Tony. And 3, 4, 5, Tony was just going to take over, because Tony's cardio was just unmatched at that time. Who do you think Tony could have beat at the time he fought/lost to Chiesa? People that don't have extreme finishing ability would be the best matchup for him. So maybe someone like Jared Gordon. I think Imov gasses out. So even though we have that narrative, he looked better and better in the Jared Cannonier fight as the rounds went along. And even in the Sean Strickland fight, he won round 5. So I don't think Imov's cardio is as bad as people think. Do you think Max versus Ilya at 155 would be any different? Not really, honestly. I think maybe Max would survive a bit longer, but unless he changes his style significantly to deal with Ilya, he was always going to have problems. When he did have good scrambles, yeah, exactly. Did the mandatory service really hurt the Korean Zombie, or would his career play out the same? Yeah, I do think it did, because he missed a lot of years in the gym that could have brought him to the next level. So it's not about like the fact that he missed the years of fighting, it's the fact that he missed the years in the gym. Had he been progressing in those years, he could have done much better. Do you think Prime Tony would age well in this era of the lightweight division? Yeah, 100%. I think that Prime Tony could beat most, if not everyone, in lightweight right now. Do you think Tony lost to MC? I assume that's Michael Chandler because of age. Yeah, Tony's just movement was just off in that fight, as was it all after the knee injury. How do you think Cowboy versus Khabib would have gone like 3 times it was booked, genuinely? I think Cowboy's an awful matchup for Khabib. I think the earlier times it was booked, Cowboy would have won. The last time it was booked, maybe not. But Cowboy was definitely a bad matchup for Khabib, yeah. What are you hoping the main event and co-main event for 317 are? What date is 317 again? Let's see. June 28th. Oh, I'm hoping it's Topuria Islam. Co-main... I mean, I'd hope for Jones Aspinall, but I doubt it's happening. What do you think beats Prime Tony? Oh, MC was Chiesa. Yeah, it was definitely because he was just too out of his prime at that point. Who do you think beats Prime Tony? Let me think. I really don't know. Like, Prime Tony was very hard to deal with. How could Poirier beat Topuria? Throw with him in the pocket and hope you can take him out. I don't think Poirier could do it at this age, but it's possible. What do you think the correct odds would be for Islam versus Prime Tony? I'd have Tony at minus 130 to minus 150. Is JDM's takedown defense as bad as people make it out to be, or did he just have an unlucky streak? Unlucky streak, in my opinion. His takedown defense on the regional scene looked pretty good. I know it's against worse opponents, but like the fundamentals were there. When do you think the last fight we saw Prime Tony? I would say before the knee injury. JDM has the Peter Yan problem where he keeps his hands high, so it's easy to get to his hips. I don't fully agree with that, because JDM is not reliant on the high guard like Peter Yan is. Like, it's baked into Peter Yan's style that he has the high guard. JDM has a bit more leeway there. Do you think Tony's fight with Justin is a trap set by Ali and Khabib? Seems like Justin is too prepared for the fight. Not really. I just don't think that people realized that Tony was declining already. Like, even in the Pettis and Cowboy fights, Tony did not look right to me. Do you think Makhachev would have beaten Tony? I don't think he would have beaten Prime Tony, but it would have been a close fight. Do you think Petr Yan could still be champ? Not really, to be honest. I think he hasn't progressed enough. Your all-time best of all-time list is Prime Tony in your top 3. So best of all time versus greatest of all time. If we're talking about best of all time, I actually have not thought about that before, but maybe. I do see Prime 145 Connor against the top 5 the featherweight division today. I would pick him against Volk. I'd pick him against Lopez. Yeah, actually, I'd pick Prime 145 Connor against pretty much everyone, to be honest. Do you favor Yan over Umar? And would the Yan rematch over Merab go any different? So, yeah, I do think that Yan could beat Umar, because Umar has a cardio issue, which I pointed out pre-Merab fight. I do think that if Jan can just basically stall out over the first few rounds, which he can, and just not get finished, I do think he'll win 3-4-5 or get a late finish. Jan rematch with Merab, however, I don't see going any differently. Because the reality is that Jan's style is just so reliant on reads that a chaotic fighter like Merab, who's just going to keep shooting and doing stuff, is always going to throw it off. You have to rank the nerds from worst to best. How would you have it? I assume you're talking about the main ones, because there's a lot of other people at that gym who just aren't amazing. But I would say at worst, we have, honestly, probably Kaio. It was still very good, but I think of the main ones, he's probably the worst. And I'd say Protez, then Rufy, then Silva. You're focusing too much on patterns and versatility instead of skill. Yeah, Tony could throw elbows, but he's not John Jones. Prime Tony would get whooped by a lot of people. No, I disagree. I'd say skill-wise, he was still better than everyone. Because if you look at his timing and movement, he was still much better. Like, skill-wise, he was still just as good as his versatility. Prime Tony versus Prime Usman at 170. That's actually a very tough one. I'm going to lean Prime Tony by like 48-47 decision. When's the next video coming? Been waiting for a while now. So, I've been working on something big that my part is going to be somewhat done with soon. Then after that, I can go back to making videos. So hopefully around 2 weeks from now. Prime Volk versus Prime Connor. Probably Prime Connor. Volk has a lot of tendencies that would get him caught. I'd have Prime Usman by decision. That's a fair take. I think it would be a close fight either way. Rob will always be a nightmare matchup for Jan. Yeah. If he ages out, Jan could become champ. It's possible. Connor stayed at 145. How would have a matchup against Frankie played out? He should have beaten Frankie, like, relatively easily, honestly. How do you think Prime Usman versus GSP would go? So I think that they're actually very similar fighters. They're both very jab heavy. They both would prefer to have the fight on the ground, and they were just both pretty well rounded. I did think GSP was more versatile and a bit better at staying safe and getting the fight to the ground, so I favor him. How do you think Khabib versus Prime Usman would have played out? I would pick Prime Usman. I just don't think he could have gotten. I don't think Khabib would have gotten Usman down. The jab would have just taken over, most likely. Prime Ilya versus Prime Connor. I'd pick Connor, but Ilya could win with the right game plan. Because again, if he just wrestles rounds 1 to 3, he could definitely win around 4 or 5. How would Prime Connor do against a wrestler like Khabib, Evloev, etc.? So I think he would beat Evloev easily, just because Evloev has no threat anywhere. The way to beat Connor is to have a threat. Khabib had a much greater threat on the ground, so that's why he was able to prevent Connor from trying to stand up, because he was worried about getting subbed. So I definitely pick Prime Connor against Evloev. Khabib was always going to be a tough matchup, but if we're talking about the Connor from the past who was perfectly calm, I do think he would have definitely had a chance. Hamza versus Prime Rockhold. Tough one. Probably going to pick Chimaev, but it's close. What is the big thing that you have been talking about? So, I don't know if you've been seeing my Instagram stories or if you're just from YouTube, but basically, at the beginning of the year, I talked about the fact that there was a project I wanted to do, and it was going to be specifically for fighters, something that can like revolutionize the training space. But I didn't have the money or influence to get it done. And that is still true, but basically I decided that I'm going to try to work on the parts that I can by myself, then try to monetize that and make enough money to pay to get the rest of it done. So the big thing that I'm talking about is the first stage of that project. Prime Connor versus Khabib at catch weight of 150. Khabib would die to making 150, I feel like. I'd probably pick Connor because I feel like he could have made the weight more easily than Khabib. How do you predict RDR versus Bo Nickel? I just don't think RDR is going to get into a position where he can create a threat. Like, Bo Nickel's probably just going to take him down and lay on him. Build the best lightweight, in my opinion. Chandler athleticism with Volk flight IQ. Chandler athleticism is definitely a thing, yes. High rocket powered. Grappling, let's see. Grappling, I'm probably taking Khabib. Well, okay, I should say wrestling, I'm taking Khabib. Grappling, I'm taking Oliveira. Striking, I'm probably still taking Connor. Fight IQ, Bulk is a fair pick. Do you think Prime Connor beats any flyweight? I think that John Silva could give him issues. Other than that, I do think so, unless there's someone I'm forgetting about. Islam versus the Connor that fought Eddie. I think that Islam is a much easier matchup for Connor than Khabib, so I would pick Connor there. Would you be open to helping fighters with game planning? Yeah, I did that already. Like, DM me if you are thinking about that stuff. John Jones Kryptonite, make it happen? Yeah, I will. Hamza versus Prime Silva. Probably Shemaev. Because Silva did get taken down and controlled by several people. How would Anderson Silva do against today's middleweight if he had today's nutrition equipment? It's a tough question because if we're saying like, oh, okay, he grew up in this era and he had that talent and today's skills, I mean, we don't really know what would have happened. But if we're talking about the Anderson Silva's skills that we do know of, well, then he's not going to hold up to today's middleweights realistically. Do you think one championship DJ is better skill-wise than UFC DJ? I think skill-wise, yes. His grappling got a lot better. And I would say his striking got a little more precise. How do you see Jang versus Shevchenko going today? It's a tough fight. I actually think that Jang might out-grapple her to a decision, which might be a weird take, but I see it happening. I think that Jang got so much better in the wrestling/grappling, preparing for Suarez, that she would have the chance of just shutting down Shevchenko like that. Who beats Prime DJ if they're the same size? Pantoja. Pantoja's a very bad matchup for DJ, because DJ just couldn't hurt him, and if Pantoja gets like one position, he can get a submission in. Pierre versus Prime Connor. It would be a fun fight. I favor Connor, but it'd be fun. Prime Connor versus John Silva would be such a treat. Yeah, for sure. That would have been amazing. Pantoja and Figgy could beat DJ for sure. Yeah, I think that DJ would have had a better chance against Figgy, but Pantoja, I just don't see how DJ could have won. How would Max versus Hooker go? That'd be a fun one. It would probably be a 5-round war. I'd see a 48-47 either direction. I'd probably favor Max, but I would not be surprised either way. Corey versus Sean. Okay, I used to think that Corey would win that, but Corey's lack of urgency has been insane to me. Like, he just seems like he doesn't care to finish fights at all anymore and just wants to point fight. And that's not going to work against Sean. Not for him. It will work for like Marab, but it's not going to work for Corey. So at this point in time, I have to favor Sean, even though I feel like Corey should be able to take it. I feel like DJ was undersized even for flyweight. If he was like 5'6" with a 67-inch reach, he could have easily been the greatest. I don't think it was just the undersized aspect, although I understand what you're saying. I think it was just he didn't have any real threat anywhere. Like, yes, he did hit some cool submissions, but he didn't have a constant submission threat or a knockout threat. Corey is the king of losing important fights. Yeah, valid. Corey could take a wrestling game plan and beat Sean. I just don't think that Corey's wrestling is good enough. Like, it's not bad, but I don't think it's that good. What was your pick for Garry Prates that just joined? That's Prates by second round TKO. Corey needs to put the beakers and test tubes away and get the mindset he had after losing Aljo. Yeah, 100%. He needs to go in there to kill. How are we feeling on Prime Corey, the one that actually wanted to go murder guys, versus Prime Tony? I still think Prime Tony takes it because, well, assuming they're the same size, first of all. I do think that Prime Tony takes it just because he had more of a threat. Like, he could actually hurt you, while Corey needs a very big action to hurt you. But it would be fun. How do you see DDP versus Yuri going? DDP's game planning, I think, could get him the win. I just don't know how he would do it. But Yuri is always a massive threat. O'Malley versus Ilya, who you got? Probably Ilya. Not that O'Malley can't win, but his ability to adapt on the fly seems not great after watching the first Rob fight. Bautista versus Cheeto prediction. I got Mario. Yeah, Bautista probably wins. Like, Cheeto just goes in there and falls asleep for the first 2 rounds and prays he finds a knockout shot. It's just not going to work. Prime Connor beats any version of Holloway in a 3-round fight. I don't know about 5 rounds. Yeah, for sure. Why don't you upload often? I like your vids a lot. Right now, it's because I'm working on a project for fighters. I try to upload relatively consistently on Instagram, but on YouTube, it's kind of like, okay, when I have the time to put it together, because I always want to put YouTube videos together with full detail and like do all the research necessary. So YouTube videos take me like probably 24-ish hours to do of work. So I need to have the time to do it. What do you consider the most obvious / biggest robbery of all time? I mean, Jones-Reyes, just given how much it influenced the landscape. But in terms of like, okay, are there worse robberies? Yeah, there definitely are. I would even say like Fletcher Logren was a pretty bad robbery. I always blank on robberies when someone asks me that question, but there have been a lot of robberies. Imov versus 185 Pereira. That's an interesting one. I'm going to favor Imov just because at 185 Pereira's chin was just not there. Who are you taking to save you if you and Prime Jones is in a cell? Reyes. How's your day been, man? Good, how are you? What do you think we've seen why do you think you've seen so many fights recently where fighters have an obvious path to win but freeze up and don't even attempt to win once they're there? An example, Alex versus Ankalaev, O'Malley and Sean. O'Malley. I'm assuming you mean O'Malley Marab. Sean DDP 2. It's hard to say for sure. So with O'Malley, there's a possibility it was his hip, if we really want to give him benefit of the doubt. Otherwise, it could have just been like just really bad game planning. Like, I don't know in all honesty. Also, his corner advice was terrible. Like, his corner was not telling him what to do. Sean DDP2 was tough because Sean is very reliant on his jab, and DDP figured out how to completely punish that and just keep countering it. So I think once Sean's jab was getting countered, he just froze. Alex versus Ankalaev, honestly, I'm not entirely sure about, because Alex just did not risk anything. I don't know if he was just really terrified of the wrestling or what the deal was, but I don't know what he was doing. How do you feel about Ankalaev versus Prime Jones? People think I'm crazy for picking Ankalaev. You're not crazy. I do understand the thought process. I just don't think he would have had an answer to the low kicks and such. I think Jones would have just stayed on the outside and just kept blasting like oblique kicks and stuff like that. And Ankalaev is not good at stopping that. So I think Jones would have probably taken a boring decision, but I do understand what you're thinking. I'm not going to say Ankalaev couldn't have won. Prime Yuri versus Prime Jan. I think Prime Jan was too powerful and accurate. He would have clipped Yuri and probably put him away. Prime Jones versus Prime Reyes. I mean, we saw what happened. Reyes won. Love your content, bro. Thanks. Armin pulling out against Islam Rue in the lightweight division. It caused a lot of problems, yeah. Prime John versus Prime Jan. Okay, that's a very interesting one, because John has had problems with low kicks throughout a lot of his career, and Jan is the perfect person to punish that. So I see it as a close to 50-50, because Prime Jan had very good takedown defense also. As he got a little bit older, he started like reacting slower and having issues, but I do think in his prime he might have taken it. Apparently, Alex had ligament damage in his leg and had broken hands, but I don't know how factual it is. Maybe. I mean, fighters have injuries a lot going into fights, so it is what it is. I don't know. Maybe we'll see something different out of it next time. I don't think that was Prime Jones versus Prime Reyes. Jones was not at his best. I mean, it's possible. The problem is that every performance Jones has had, where it's like, oh, that was amazing. Like, he's popped for PEDs. So I don't know what Prime Jones actually is. How do you think 170 Chimaev would do against today's 170 lineup? He'd have problems with people like Brady and, well, Brady's his nightmare matchup. Let's just say that. Otherwise, I do think he could beat a lot of them. Think like, let's see, Usman still would at 170 would shut him down, but other than that, he definitely would have a chance to beat pretty much everyone else at least. Prime Yuri versus Prime Gustafsson. I think Prime Gustafsson was just too good. Jan had good takedown D, but he's got nothing when flat on his back. You know, the weird thing is that when he was younger, he did a bit better off his back, and then he just stopped. I don't know what the deal is, but like when he was younger, he threatened submissions off his back and was actually kind of decent. Hamza would be the perfect 175er. Maybe. I don't know if he can make 175 now, but maybe at one point. This is obviously far-fetched, but take Prime Jones, no coke, no PEDs, no mental issues, etc. Do you think he beats Prime Reyes in that fight? Like, I know what you're saying. I just don't know. Because we just don't know how Jones looks without PEDs and, like, actually trying. And, like, we don't know if the mental issues make him a better or worse fighter. Like, some fighters kind of need that, in all honesty. 170 Chimaev beats Brady. The fight against Chiesa was a bad look. 170 Chimaev beats Brady at the point of the Chiesa fight. But Brady has improved a lot since the Chiesa fight. I don't think that 170 Chimaev could beat Brady now. To be honest, I think Jones' game plan lost him that fight. I just don't know what he could have done differently, because Jones has always had very bad boxing defense. Sean should fight Kaio, in my opinion. They train together, so I doubt that's going to happen. How do you think the welterweight division goes if they don't rob Colby? I see him in second Usman fight. And in that case, let's see, who would have been... It probably would have been Usman Trilogy. I don't know who wins that then. So it's really hard to say. It depends who won that. The only reason John popped so much was because he fought in the transitioning period when USADA was introduced. I mean, maybe, but USADA also tested Yuri like 20 times in a month or something, so I'm not going to say like USADA just tried at that point in time. Can you talk me out of betting 10 units on Garry? Well, okay, you're in the Discord. You saw how I bet it, right? If you saw how I bet that fight, that's how I recommend betting that fight. The second Usman fight was a draw, to be honest. I could see that. Yeah, I mean, if you feel like you have a read on Garry, then I'm not going to say don't take it, right? He could definitely win the fight. But I'm just kind of playing both sides, as you saw. I think Prime Reyes will always be faster than Prime Jones, but I think Jones with a push on the cage for the first couple of rounds while slightly trying for trip takedowns game plan could work. I see it. I mean, Reyes has always had really good takedown defense. I don't see Jones getting him down in rounds 1 to 3, even with a different game plan. Reyes that fought Jones versus Prime Gustafsson. I think that Gus was a worse matchup for Reyes because Gus has better boxing defense. I'm going to just lean Prime Gus, but I would not be surprised if it went either way, 48-47. What's some fighters that are actually overrated by hardcore fans? Well, I kind of hate to say this, probably Anderson Silva. Like, he was still a very good fighter for his time. But people are like, oh, Anderson Silva would beat DDP and like beat everyone in the middleweight division. No, he wouldn't have. Like, he started having issues with the next generation for a reason. We don't know where Prata's grappling is at, but if it's on the feet, Prata should find the KO. Yeah, for sure. I think Jones could stay at kickboxing range and then clinching when Reyes gets into boxing range. He could try, but Reyes had such a speed advantage, it was tough. Who do you think has the best chin in the UFC and the worst chin? Vettori has to have the best chin at this point. He's just gotten blasted by everything and it's just fine. Worst chin is probably Schno. Yeah, I agree. I think Jones maybe get a couple takedowns, but Reyes would immediately get up. But if you push Reyes in the cage more, he wouldn't have taken so much damage and lost the first 3 rounds. I still think he would have lost the exchanges and lost the rounds, but I get what you're saying. It definitely could have been closer. Process made 167? He weighed in at 167? Really? Are you sure? He made 167 in the rooms. Why? Didn't he say he was putting on more weight for this fight? His walk-around used to be 178, but they said that he was bringing his walk-around like closer to 190 or something now. They just showed it in a video. I don't know what the hell he's doing then. People hate it, but that Anderson take is something I couldn't agree with more. Yeah, exactly. He did put on more weight. He could have totaled ridiculous. Did he mess up? Like, I don't even know how he cut extra accidentally. That's so strange. Other guys with great chins are actually good fighters that can roll with it and brace for shots before. Yeah, exactly. He just eats clean stuff. I actually don't know who that is, Bennett. That's not a good look on Prates if it's true. I mean, I guess it's good that he was able to cut to it easily, but that is weird, yeah. In times of all-time lists, where do you put Anderson? I usually put him around 5. I think the Yair we seen at 314 would beat the Volk he fought. I don't know about that because whenever he was boxing, he still kind of just threw stuff. Like, there was no like plan in how he was boxing. It was just, I'm just gonna spam like 3 or 4 shots in a row. Aren't the weigh-ins tomorrow morning? I'm very confused about what's happening with all that. Are the weigh-ins live right now? Like, give us your all-time top 10. Okay, I put GSP at number 1, DJ at number 2. At 3, I have to probably put Jones. 4, probably Aldo. 5, Silva. 6, Volk. I usually don't think past 5, but 6, Volk. 7. I mean, Usman would be a reasonable take. Let's see, what would 8 be? No Islam? Not yet. I mean, the weird thing about Islam is that 2 of his title defenses are like very questionable, and that they are short notice Moicano and very short notice Volk, who wasn't preparing for a fight at all. I was with you up until Usman. I mean, I might put Usman a bit lower if I was thinking about this list more. I'm kind of just thinking about it on the fly. I'll have to get back to you guys about a top 10. I would want to think about it a bit more. You're good for putting GSP and DJ 1 and 2. Yeah. I mean, I just don't think that Jones can really be at 1 or 2 after popping multiple times. I made the point about Yair, but that just shows a difference in corporations because Pitbull looked absolutely awful. Yeah. And Pitbull is also old. I think they're saving Jones versus Aspinall for when the Netflix deal gets signed. So apparently the Netflix deal is not happening at all. So Netflix said that they're not interested in non-one-off events. I still have zero clue what Volk was thinking about that shortness fight. Yeah, 100%. Jones' resume is overrated. Yeah, I agree. Do you think MMA training is more beneficial in training separate disciplines like Ilya? I think you should do both. I think that you do want to get deep into each discipline, but you also need to know how to put it together. Crazy or valid take to have Merab as the bantamweight goat? It's valid. I think that you could say him or Cruz and have a reasonable argument either way. There's so many asterisks next to Islam fights for him to even be considered. Yeah, I agree. Yes, I said DJ, not BJ Penn. When it comes to pound per pound primes, I don't think there's much an argument against Jones, Tony, Connor, Khabib, DC. If we're talking about primes and like how good they were, I agree with all of them. Well, it's hard for me to say like Jones and DC in a conversation with lower weight primes because they're just so much more skilled. How did you score Umar versus Merab? And how do you think a rematch next year goes? I had it 49-46 for Merab. Rematch next year. I mean, unless Merab starts looking much worse due to age, I think he takes it again. How do you think Paddy matches up against the current top lightweights? Mainly Gaethje, Oliveira, Armin, Holloway, and Taporia. I think he's going to have a much harder time now fighting up. I do think he beats Gaethje, though, because he could just wait until Gaethje overswings and then just take him down and submit him. Wait, you don't have Ilya on your top 10? Not yet. I feel like Ilya needs one more thing. Like, if he gets... Actually, maybe top 10, maybe. He wasn't in my top 5 or 6, but he might be in my top 10, like, at the end. Do you think Paul Hughes or Usman from PFL could even become ranked? Not right now. I mean, they could get better, but not currently. Olive Prata's weight cut is on story. Interesting. Islam resume versus Khabib. I'd still say Khabib's is better, because at least his opponents weren't, like, short notice replacements and such. I think Ilya and Connor should be higher than Aldo on the GOAT list, but I have a new gen, though. Aldo, if you want to talk about skill for skill, Connor and Ilya are better. I understand that, if we're talking about best. If we're talking about greatest, I would say that Aldo had many more accomplishments. Do you think Merab is the best bantamweight of all time? It's close. I think that Cruz was a very bad matchup for him, and I would have loved to see that in his prime. But it's really hard to say. Paddy isn't that good, but he'd still probably step against. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think Khabib currently still has a better resume, same wins but different looks. Yeah, for sure. How do you feel about the takes that Jan is the most skilled fighter ever but struggles with applying his skills, which is why he had close fights? I don't think he's the most skilled fighter ever by any means. I think that his strategy is reliant on reads. And when you are purely reliant on reads, and like reads over rounds, not like minutes. Like John Silva really likes reads, but he'll do them over minutes. Jan needs reads over rounds, and when you have a strategy like that, you're going to have problems. What do you think Ilya needs to... what do you think Islam needs to do or beat to become the GOAT? He would have to probably defend one more time against Taporia, then go up, win that belt, and defend it. Preferably like 2 or 3 times. I think Ilya top 10 already is a bit crazy. Yeah, it's like maybe he just edges like 10, but he doesn't have enough title defenses to really say much. Aldo above Volk? Yeah, I mean, he still has significantly more title defenses if I remember correctly. I'm predicting Sean beats Merab by decision. Merab's cardio looks worse every fight. I get what you're saying. I mean, I'm picking Sean also. I don't know if Merab's cardio looks worse every fight, though, or if he's just had worse circumstances. Like, he took the Umar fight coming off of a really bad infection. I think Islam is better than Khabib, like a more complete fighter, but Khabib is more dominant. I think that Islam has more skills than Khabib, but it doesn't necessarily make him better. I would say that it's a lot easier to beat Islam than Khabib, because Khabib was always just going to get right to his game plan, while Islam will do several different things that leave him open. If you comfortably believe Sean O'Malley should be the favorite over Merab, why isn't Sean up there with the best of all time bantamweights? Because I think there are people who could beat O'Malley. I think that O'Malley would have to prove more to me. I just think his style is good against Merab. Not that he's necessarily like better Merab in the sense that he beats more ranked bantamweights. Do you agree with Merab just dominating cardio, or do you think he's skill for skill very good too, compared to, for example, Umar? I think that the cardio helps enhance his skills, but I think he still has to have very high level of skill to implement it. I'm pretty sure Aldo only has one more title defense than Volk. Are you counting WEC or no? Because I pretty much count WEC because it became UFC. In my opinion, who you beat and when you beat them far outweighs title defenses. Like I put Volk above Aldo all the time. I'm not going to say it's a terrible take to put Volk above Aldo. I completely understand it. I wouldn't personally do it right now, but if Volk were to get like one more title defense, I'd probably do it. Armin versus Khabib prediction. I would say Khabib takes it. I think he was just a little better in the grappling. Rogan saying featherweight and lightweight are the most competitive. Do you agree? I think it is starting to be flyweight and bantamweight. I would say in the past, yes. Now I would say like the low divisions are taking over. Umar versus O'Malley. It's a bad stylistic matchup for O'Malley. I'd probably lean Umar. Who do you think is most likely to be triple champ or will never happen? Most likely right now is Ilya. Is it likely? Not the most, but it's possible. I would say it's most likely of everyone right now. Give us your commentator rankings and why. I would probably put Felder and Sanko at the best right now. Then probably Bisping and Cruz after that. And then I put then probably Anik. Then worst is probably DC. As for why, I would say that Felder and Sanko stay very unbiased and are pretty good at describing situations and what to do. Cruz has weird moments, but sometimes has the most insight when he's on point. Bisping gets a little distracted, but usually isn't like biased or anything and doesn't have any extreme like issues. Anik would be good if he didn't just have like very weird moments. Like Anik will just get really annoyed at weird things and have like extreme bias in certain situations. And then DC, of course, is just like eating while commentating, doing random stuff. Yeah, DC doesn't really need explanation. He's just overly biased. It's just everything you don't want from a commentator. Anik below Cruz is insane to me. I would say that Cruz has much better insights than Anik. Oh, what about Rogan? I forgot about Rogan. Okay, Rogan in the past would have been higher. Now he's pretty low. Cruz and Bisping are decent, but if you put Cruz and Bisping on the same commentary, it's miserable. I get what you mean. DC thought that Hamza fought Diaz, yeah. Yeah, Senko is one of the best right now. I think DC clip farms a lot too. I think a lot of times he isn't being truthful. It's possible. Real ones remember the terrible commentary of Jan versus Adesanya. Yeah, that was some of the worst, if not the worst I've ever seen. I feel like people I assume you're saying underrate. Like people underrate charisma needed for commentary. Cruz just doesn't have it, in my opinion. I get what you mean. He does not have the charisma, but if we're talking about like pure insights he sometimes has the best. DC just wants to eat, man. Yeah, apparently. Buckley versus Protez, who wins? It's a weird one. I feel like it could go either way. Because if Buckley can keep pushing him back with the blitzes, he definitely could catch Protez. Protez might catch him before that, though, because Buckley can have questionable defense, to say the least. Do you think John Silva beats Diego Lopez right now? Yeah, I do. Alright, I'm probably going to cut it off here because my voice is kind of going. I need to get used to streaming longer before I do it. But thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. One plug before I go. If you guys are betting on this event and you are not in my Discord yet, I have the link in the bio here. It is a paid service, but we do pretty well with algorithms and such to bet on UFC. So if you're not doing that already, consider it. Alright, have a good night, everyone. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you next time.